side of the engine, passenger side. There's the timing belt cover. There's a couple covers around here you're going to have to take off. The nose is obviously coming from over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that off. I know just from the experience of doing these that that's probably going to end up being what it needs. You know, it's nothing internal in the engine. All of the pulleys are good. Belt's off, still makes the noise while running. So yeah guys, I'm gonna pull that off, and you know, if I have a chance to walk you guys through it, I'm going to. If not, I'll show you what it looks like once I get everything apart. So I'm already a few steps in. You want to take the belt off first. Chances are if you already looked at this, you're gonna have the belt off anyway, but there's your tensioner right there. There's a 13 millimeter on the side of it. Put your ratchet, wrench, belt tool on there and push it towards the back of the car and pull the belt off. Put the car up. Take the wheel off. Then you want to take this wheel well cover out enough so where you can see the crank. Next thing you guys want to do is you want to take this plug off up there. It's going to show you where your top dead center is once you get it lined up. So you can go through here, through the wheel well and up there and grab it, or go up top and pull it off. And we'll move on from there. So what you guys want to do is you want to turn the crank until you see the number 1 in there, and it'll line up with a notch on the bottom of that hole, which you can see up top. But it's easier to look for the 1 while you're underneath turning the crank. So you get your 19 millimeter on there, turn it until you see the 1. Try to get this. See the 1 through that hole. Then you go up top and line it up with the notch on the bottom of that hole. There you go, there's the 1. So the crankshaft pulley is a 19 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and take that off. All right, guys, we got it off. Unfortunately, we had to use heat and a 3/4 inch gun, so that was fun. Now we're going to move on to the slightly easier stuff. Next thing you want to do, get yourself a jack and a block of wood and jack up the engine under the oil pan. You're going to have to take the bracket off up top and probably the motor mount. Just jack it up a little bit, enough to where it won't fall. You're going to take the bracket off, pull your crank off, crank pulley. And you want to get this little lock. You don't want to lose that. Put that somewhere safe. Gotta need a second hand to get it out, most likely. That little lock right there on the top. There you go. I'm gonna put that on my magnet so I don't lose it. Magnet on there. Pull that off. Next, you want to take the tensioner pulley off. So you got 1 bolt on the bottom there. Right there, and you got the bolt in the center of that pulley, and that'll come off for 12 millimeter. So this one's actually a 14, and unfortunately you can't get any power tools in there. You're gonna have to use a hand tool. Not fun. So we'll get that off, and we're gonna take this one off, which is a 12 millimeter, and this should come off of the engine. All right, get yourself a wobble extension. You can't get an electric gun on that bottom one. That is 12 millimeter, and that should drop right out. Next, you want to take the ground cable bracket off. It's 10 millimeter, it's already off right there. And then take these 2 bolts for the motor mount off. 15 millimeter. Then you have a 17 millimeter down the side here you want to take off. Get this motor mount bracket out. You got to unbolt the side one that I just unbolted. Actually comes out all in one piece like that. Then you just flip this around and it falls right out the bottom. Now for the easy part, get your 10 millimeter and take all the bolts out around these covers. So you got this cover here and then the one back there. And you can actually get to a lot of these bolts underneath too. See all the 10 millimeters on that plastic cover? You're going to take all them off. And we're going to pull that cover off, and that's where the timing belt is and the water pump. Next thing we want to do is get this motor mount bracket off. There's one bolt there, and there's going to be some up top. The water pump is behind that. I'm going to pull the power steering pump off to make these easier to get to. So you got a 12mm there. And there's going to be one on the bottom side, basically right across from that one. Try to get it on video and show you guys. You can actually see it right there. Line off the top of it. It's two 10mm bolts holding it on. You can swing it out the front. You can see that mount. Take that 10mm off at the top. And then there's another, I believe, 14 on the side there. So guys, you have one more 14mm and it's in the side of this mount. Now, I'm trying to get around taking the computer out and everything and the fuse box and everything else. So if you jack this engine all the way up as high as you can and get your 14mm in there with a ratchet, you can crack it loose and then walk it out the rest of the way by hand. That will save you from having to take everything else off if they want you to. So there's a bolt. If you do it that way, take that bolt out. The bolt will still be in there. You can remove this, and then the water pump is right under it. So now while the belt's going, you got to make sure all of your timing marks are lined up. So you got one there. That lines up with the one on the pulley right there. There's the one, and the notch on the top. There on the back one, same thing. You have a notch right there. And then there's the one on the pulley. Kind of hard to see, but you get the point. Then for the crank, you have an arrow at the top there and the arrow on the crank. So once they're all lined up, you don't have to worry about redoing this once you get the old belt off and the new belt on, because they'll already be lined up. Just make sure before you put everything back together that they're still lined up when you put the new belt on. So now we can take our tensioner off. That's the hydraulic tensioner, two 10mm bolts on it. We can take our other pulleys off, so you got one there and one there. I believe those are 12mm, but I'm not 100% sure. And then the water pump is right there. It's going to be all 10mm around that. Once we get the belt off, we'll take that off.
Now the belt is loose in there, guys. We're going to pull that off and check out this tensioner, get the water pump off, and change these pulleys out.
Belt is on there very tight. There we go. You guys can take that bracket off to get it off the bottom half easier, but you don't really have to. So the tensioner is 14mm. Don't worry, we got a new one. There's our new one. We'll throw that on. Guys, always make sure you check your parts before you put them on. Make sure they're right, they look the same. Very important in the old one. You have this metal sleeve inside you got to put into the new one. Need 2 hands for it. Alright, next I want to get your catch pan under it. We're going to take the water pump bolts out, all 10mm. Probably going to need both my hands for this, but I'll try to show you guys where all of them are at least. So, actually on the new one, you can just look at it and see. Yeah, this is going to be kind of hard to do on video. So, take your new one, hold it up like this, and you can see where all the bolts are. Take all of them out. So, I think you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 bolts. Alright, so I got 5 bolts out. I think that was it for this next part. Good luck. You just got to pry it off and let it drain, unless you drained it beforehand, which you could also do. Spec is 9 foot-pounds or 12 Newton-meters for the water pump. New one's in. Torque spec for the tensioner is 25 Newton-meters or 19 foot-pounds. Alright, that's on. Then the idler pulley there is 45 Newton-meters. Tensioner's on. We're going to throw the belt on now, make sure all the timing marks are lined up, and we're going to pull the pin on that tensioner. So you guys want to get the belt back on. You want to make it as tight as you can around all of these pulleys, and you want to leave the loose side on the tensioner. So that should be loose. Everything else should be as tight as you can possibly get it so that this belt isn't loose and doesn't turn any of the gears and get the timing off. So after you do that, got your little like grenade pin up here. You're gonna pull that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna need 2 hands for that one. But you're gonna pull that. Let's see. Yeah, 2 hands. You're gonna pull that, and it's gonna pop the tensioner out and tighten that belt. All right, guys. So we pulled the little pin. Tensioners, hydraulic tensioners out, putting pressure on the belt. Make sure all sides of the belt feel tight. They all feel pretty even to me. Next, you're going to want to put the crankshaft pulley back on and turn the engine 2 full revolutions and make sure all your timing marks are still lined up. Another thing to mention is that when you put the belt on, you want to get this one actually spins freely. You want to make sure it's still lined up when the belt is on. All right, guys, get your little keyway in there, get the spacer on there, throw this crank pulley back on. Turn the engine 2 times, make sure all the timing marks are still lined up, and then hopefully start it and make sure the noise is gone. Fill it with coolant as well. I will check the torque spec on that. I believe the crankshaft pulley bolt is actually 181 foot-pounds. So you check out all your timing marks, make sure they're all good. Get the crank pulley on, tighten the bolt down. We're going to start it up and see if the noise is gone. You guys can see it's just nice and quiet now. In there, everything looks good. And put it all back together now. Get the pressure tester on and make sure that water pump doesn't leak as well. So that's going to conclude this video. You got to put like your motor mount back on, all your covers for the timing belt, tensioner pulley for the serpentine belt, put the serpentine belt back on. You're going to want to put your power steering pump back on. Basically bolt everything back in that you took out before in reverse order. I believe the torque specs are like 10 foot-pounds for the bolts for the covers. So as always, thanks for watching, guys. If this video helped you out, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe.